Can you... Ah, é brasileira. Você pode ligar sua câmera, por favor? A gente já vai começar daqui a pouquinho. Câmera e áudio ligado. Ok, você pode ligar sua câmera, por favor? Turn on the camera, please. Hi Jamal, can you turn on your camera as well, please? Thanks, Jamal. Hello, Vijoo, how are you?
We are here to bring our efforts and our struggles together as a people, Palestinian people, Mexican people, indigenous, against this segregation, the apartheid systems.
Pues nosotros somos la caravana internacional por un mundo sin muros, que venimos de Oaxaca, que aquí en todo este recorrido que hemos hecho hemos estado denunciando todos los agravios que está viviendo el pueblo de Palestino. Decimos que no vamos a permitir que se sigan imponiendo muros y pedimos alto a esas empresas que están coadyuvando para construir esos muros que atentan contra la vida de las personas.
Queremos respaldar esta lucha de este pueblo heroico de Palestina y que estamos con ellos en todo momento, porque debemos unificar las luchas, debemos estar unidos los pueblos de todos los mundos, de todo el mundo, para poder defendernos en contra de los muros de la infamia que nos están separando de nuestras familias, que nos están separando de nuestros cultivos, que nos están apartando de nuestra propia tierra y nos están despojando nuestros territorios.
We're here in Nogales, Sonora, and this is also a part of the traditional Ottoman territory. We come from the Ottoman nation. The connections between the walls, the militarization, and the technology that's being produced out of Israel, and how that affects us in the Ottoman nation, and to connect our people, to connect our struggles, and also to work together.
Este momento exige la reactivación de un movimiento internacionalista y antimilitarista. Uno que esté verdaderamente en solidaridad con las luchas de los pueblos por la libertad, la justicia y la dignidad, y no diluido por las banderas de luchas superficiales que apuestan a un concepto ambiguo de justicia que no está enraizado en la visión de la liberación de los pueblos. Es la única manera en que nuestras luchas colectivas por la liberación triunfarán.
En mi nombre y una paz.
Esta carta fue hecha una semana después de que murió este niño, mi sobrino. Dice así: soy Toñito, solo soy un joven de 16 años con muchos sueños e ilusiones que tú cortaste el día que decidiste dispararme. ¡Toñito, vive, vive!
¡La lucha sigue, sigue!
¡Toñito, vive, vive, vive!
¡La lucha sigue, sigue, sigue!
¡Va a caer! ¡Ese muro va a caer!
¡Va a caer, va a caer! ¡Ese muro va a caer!
¡Va a caer, va a caer! ¡Ese muro va a caer!
¡Va a caer, va a caer! ¡Ese muro va a caer!
10
¡Va a
seconds.
caer, va a caer! ¡Ese muro va a caer!
¡Va a caer, va a caer! ¡Ese muro va a caer!
Shall continue. Solidarity greetings to all of you, and thank you for waiting until this webinar to start. Thank you all for joining, and I hope everyone is able to be safe and healthy at these challenging times. This roundtable discussion is the start of the World Without Walls series of webinars hosted by the Palestinian Stop the Wall campaign. I am honored to be joined by such inspiring, phenomenal guests from across the globe to discuss today's struggles against walls of discrimination, dispossession, destruction, and the need to join in solidarity. Please welcome with me Vijoo Krishnan, Joint Secretary of India's Farmers Movement, AIKS, Bertha Zuñiga, Coordinator of the Civic Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations in Honduras, COPINH, Jamal Juma, the General Coordinator of the Palestinian Stop the Wall campaign, and we will also be having Sônia Guajajara later in the discussion, and she is the Executive Director of the Articulation of the Indigenous Peoples of Brazil. This roundtable is being live-streamed both on Stop the Wall and the BDS Movement Facebook pages, as well as many other partner pages. It will also be translated into English, Portuguese, Spanish, and Arabic. So in order to access the right language channel, please go to the Stop the Wall website or the Facebook page. While we Palestinians have to resist the Israelis' ongoing Nakba, we also think of the interconnections between other movements and struggles around the world. Years and years of neoliberalism, capitalism, colonialism, and racism have made these interconnections more clear-cut than ever. How can we then analyze the current situation and strengthen our struggles to accumulate people's power? And how can we also build on this moment to tear down the walls of injustice? This is what we will be discussing with our speakers today. I will start with a quick introduction on World Without Walls, and then we will open the discussion with our speakers and guests. And of course, we will also open up to questions from you. So please send your questions on the Stop the Wall Facebook page or the BDS movement, and we will try to answer as many of them as possible. So World Without Walls came alive exactly 4 years ago as a reaction to Donald Trump's victory and his promise to build a big, fat, beautiful wall. Palestinian and Mexican movements launched the call for a world without walls, which was quickly endorsed by hundreds of movements, global networks, groups, and organizations from all continents. More than 70 walls that have been erected around the world. Israel is by far the world's leading wall builder. It has built a total of 6 walls. Such physical walls along borders or on occupied territory are only symptoms of many more walls of injustice we're struggling against. They are systematic, legal, or ideological. They may be in front of our eyes, or in the horizon, by our front door, at the end of the street, or even in our heads. Observing from Palestine the growing number of walls and the corresponding rise of racist, supremacist, and militarist narrative and policies, it seems as if the world is undergoing a process of Israelization. It's not then by chance that Israel is the ideological and technological model that many of the far-right, colonial, and racist powers are aspiring to be like. In fact, these leaders and political forces are as well enthusiastic admirers of Israeli practices and rules. From the supremacist right in the United States to India, where the Hindu fascist party currently in power has begun a brutal war against the non-Hindu population, to the anti-democratic pro-corporate government in Honduras, to Brazil, where Bolsonaro has developed his own brand of racist and misogynist ideology, the rising alt-right is explicit about being in alliance with Israel. Today, things may be changing. In Bolivia, we have seen a progressive government come back to power. Also, Trump is gone. However, the big, fat, beautiful wall he promised to build was only a symptom of over a decade of normalizing walls, exclusion, oppression, discrimination, and exploitation, and it still stands there. In fact, it is a problem when we need to be happy about Joe Biden winning an election. It is exactly these underlying roots, causes, and problems that we want to discuss. And we want also to discuss them with a vision from the outside of the walls of empire. This gaze beyond the walls is the moment where we can see the horizon, a world of justice, freedom, and equality that gives us hope and direction. Now, my dear guests, we will start our first round of questions. You will I will give 5 minutes to 7 minutes to each question. And I will start with my main question to you. Maybe we can start with you, Jamal. If we say that the wall of injustice are the structures and policies of oppression, exclusion, and exploitation, what would you define are the most walls of injustice that we have to break down? And also, what are the ways that in your struggle, in this context, in the context of your struggle, the Palestinian one, what are the ways that have worked to face the system of injustice?
This question, I think it needs maybe 15 minutes to answer, but we'll try to make it in 5 minutes. First of all, it's my honor to speak. It's my honor really to talk with this in this webinar with distinguished leaders from movements around the world, particularly the globe, from India, from Brazil, from Honduras. Walls, I think the industry of the walls started as an industry, and the fashion around the world, it started from Palestine. In 2002, when Israel started building the wall of 8 meters high and around 800 kilometers long in Palestine. But this is not starting of building the wall. There's other walls that the Israeli occupation were building since the occupation started. The biggest wall that I think they start from the beginning to build is the wall of fear. And this is mainly to kill the spirit of resistance to the world, to make a colonial project. When you talk about curfews, when you talk about assassinating the leaders, when you talk about checkpoints that humiliating the people, this is like the way it has been arresting the children. By the way, and lately it was in the last 5 years, we're arresting children from several places, particularly that there are ongoing resistance. And this is, aims in fact, is to kill the spirit of resistance of a generation again. The conflict started in 2002, which is a turning point. Just in not just in colonization of Palestine, but as well as international wide. It became an industry. It became fashion for governments to oppress their people in, and they were like seemed like what Israel was achieving in this war. In fact, the wall of Palestine, when we talk about it and how it's shaping Palestinian areas, it has been contribute to this, to continue separation the Palestinians, the unity of the Palestinian people. So within this 800 kilo walls, they create a clear apartheid system that they are. It's became now totally over, almost finished in the West Bank. To this, from the north, from the south, from the isolate Jerusalem totally. So we have talking about 180 kilometers of walls around Jerusalem to isolate it from its Palestinian communities, which has become target for Judaization of the city. The other very disgusting, oppressing wall is the wall of Gaza, of over 65 kilometers of walls in Gaza that turn Gaza open air prison, one of the worst areas that you can think in the world. The walls when they start like as an industry of, as I said, like exporting to the world. Now you, as Rita in the introduction were saying, like, and you have became like over 70 walls in the world has been built. Most technology of and technology and ideology of Israel behind the wall. You have the Mexico-US wall, you have Western Sahara, Morocco, Spain, Turkey, Greece, India, Bangladesh, Cyprus, Saudi and Yemen, Saudi and Yemen, Tunisia and Libya, Saudi and Iraq. So it became all this conflicts of the world that aims at oppressing the people in these countries. Moreover than that, even that comes along with it, and we see it in growing in the world. This is the super racist laws that Israel started when they talk about a state, the pure Jewish and more the indigenous people of Palestine, that they have the fundamental in their like if they are not existed, and this is a very because this is going to be in a way to start cleansing the area. And we see this in the annexation plan that lately has been issued, when they suggested that they will give the triangle, which is an intensive populated area from Palestine inside the control. They want to connect it to the West Bank. Then it became advanced more when Trump in 2017 came to the power, where he in fact represents this fascist power. The main thing that and the most dangerous thing that he did is the destruction of national law. When he signed with this is a best example. So in 2017, when he came, right away he recognized as a capital totally against the international law. Then he legalized the settlements and the colonies that they are building on the Palestinian people, and they are in fact replacing the Palestinian settlement built at the expense of a Palestinian. Every unit that built in a settlement or an outpost is in the expense of the Palestinian families, where they're controlling over the resources of the Palestinians in this. Then he came and also legalized the occupation of the Golan Heights, the Syrian Golan Heights. So he also recognized the authority and the authority of Israel on that area. Then after that, the right of return. The right of return is a fundamental right for the Palestinian people. We talk about 70% of the Palestinian people are refugees. So mainly he targeted the United Nations, the UNRWA mainly, that has been established particularly to safeguard the Palestinians' right, where he cut all the money that he's supposed to give to this, and this is trying to also to push other countries to do that. Then after that, it came right away this is all text of what's so-called the deal of the century, which we called it the biggest the big robbing of the land Palestine, but it goes beyond the borders of Palestine, trying to reorganize the whole Middle East, expanding their imperialism in the Middle East, where Israel is the cornerstone for that, where we see the whole normalization with the Arab countries, from Emirates to Sudan to Bahrain, and there is some others supposed to come after that. So in a way, what they were trying to do is denying all the right of the Palestinian people on the land, recognizing that Israel is the one who's controlling and who's they're supposed to be owning this land, and the one who can have its sovereignty on this land, while the Palestinian people is not existing in this way, or they have to accept at least to be like slaves in this apartheid colonial system that Israel established, where he recognized Israel on. So this is mainly in, I don't know how much time do I have, Rita, still?
You can finish your point, and then we can proceed.
Yeah, maybe I think in another question we can talk about resistance. And when we talk about what the Palestinians do versus this, like the Palestinian resistance resistance continue, never stop since a century, not from now, even from against the British colonization of Palestine, and it's continue after that against the occupation after the Nakba and after 67 was called the Nakba, and until now, Palestinians never surrendered to this. So I will stop
thank
here.
you. Thank you, Jamal. For those who just joined us, we were listening to Jamal Juma. He is the General Coordinator for the Palestinian Stop the Wall campaign. And I would like also to welcome Sônia Guajajara, who just joined us also. Sônia is the Executive Director of the Articulation of the Indigenous Peoples of Brazil. We're very delighted to have you. Also, we have Bertha Zuñiga, Coordinator of the Civic Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations in Honduras, COPINH, and Vijoo Krishnan, the Joint Secretary of India's Farmers Movement, AIKS. So, my dear guests, we were asking if we want to talk about the walls of justice as structures and policies of oppressions, exclusion, and exploitation. And one of the aims of this webinar is also to listen more and know more about other struggles and how they're interconnected with the Palestinian struggle. Can you please, let's move to Bertha. Bertha, if you can tell us more, in your opinion, what are the walls of injustice that we have to break down today, and what are the ways that in your struggle and context in Honduras have worked to face the system of injustice?
Bom dia.
Okay, Sônia, we're having Sônia.
Muchas gracias. Eu gostaria de agradecer a oportunidade de estar acá charlando con ustedes y principalmente hablando sobre
esses muros que nos distancia, esses muros que nos afasta, e esses muros.
And those walls, more than being physical walls, it's a structure. It's part of the structures of the state. Here in Brazil, we, indigenous women, have done important steps to break through many barriers. Historically, we have confronted racism, fascism, and machism, which has always been present. And for us, indigenous women, historically, they told us there was a cultural not to participate in certain activities, that it was part of our culture, the women to be submissive and to be a servant, so to speak. So in this way, they tried to keep us apart from discussions and mainly from decision-making processes. We haven't been able to stop or to end up with all these practices, but we have been breaking many barriers or going through many barriers and occupying several spaces. For us, it is fundamental that today we have an indigenous woman as the first parliamentary who is sitting in the House of Representatives in the federal government, who is a deputy elected by the state of Roraima. We have Nara Bare, who is the first woman to occupy the post of General Coordination of COLIABI, which is the coordination of the indigenous peoples of the Brazilian Amazon. So this organization is led by a woman, and I was the first woman in Brazil, the first indigenous woman in Brazil, to be part of a presidential ticket. Nothing of this was given us as a gift. Nothing of this was inherited naturally. These are conquests, are fights, or our struggle in the process of organizational struggle that comes from a long time ago. And today, I'm happy to see that other women have woken up and are protagonists of this process of change. They want to be protagonists, they want to be active in the struggle for participation and equality. And last year, taking a look at this and all of this and the struggle of indigenous women, I was the first indigenous woman to belong to the steering committee of APIB, which is an organization of the indigenous movements in Brazil. We started having women occupy their spaces in the free land camp, which is a very important moment in the organizations of the indigenous people. They always had us having separate meetings among women, and since 2015, we could have the meeting of women in the official program of the Freeland Camp, which was our first march, the March of Indigenous Women last year to the capital of Brazil. And it was the first march of indigenous women in the world. And organizing that parade, that demonstration, that rally, we did say we want to be present. We went there to show our power, to show that we women are decided to start struggling for any disputes and to occupy spheres of power, and to show them that we are suffering anyhow, that we are the first to suffer the impacts of climate change. We are the first ones to suffer the impact exerted by the results of elections, like fascist Bolsonaro assuming the Brazilian government, who denies climate change, denies the expansion of democracy. Women are the ones who suffer the first impacts, because when they take away from us the right to the land, we are the first ones to feel that impact or to suffer such an impact. When they adopt politics of exploration of territories, of flexibilizing the environmental laws, when they promote fires in the forest, it's we who suffer. Even when the pandemic came, it were us women that had to deal with the sick, with our children. We were there 24 hours taking care of the people, of the sick, giving guidance. So we don't want only to be taking care of our people. We want to participate and we want to make decisions together with men, both in social life and in political life. And for that, we have to fight for our own rights. So being part of cult, because they told us that we were inferior because of cultural reasons, we had to break those barriers to occupy the center of the stage of struggle. For us, we have gotten quite a few results. We did a job to sensitize indigenous women and participate in the municipal elections that we have this year in Brazil, and to participate in this process. So we have to occupy also places in the municipal governments. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I accepted this invitation, because the voice of women has to be always present. It has to be heard. And we are here taking important steps forward, which will make a difference in our life. We have to also take the hand of other women to take those steps forward with us. So that's why we are here, to support this movement, to be at the disposition of this struggle, and to make connections with other women, specifically with the women of Palestine, so that we can get to know each other's reality closer, and so we can empower ourselves mutually. Nobody can defeat or win a battle alone. We are in a permanent war. Sometimes we are confronting violent wars with firearms, but the arms that persecute us, the arms we are confronting every day, are the arms of patriarchalism, fascism, which also kill, and matches. They don't kill just firearms, war arms. So we need to leave a scenario of war. And we will only be able to end with that war if we strengthen our organizations, our women's organizations, and taking each other hands and fighting for social justice, equality in participation, equality in right, and for freedom. This is my message here today, so that we
Thank you
together
so much, Sonia. We will get to discuss more on how can we
continue
effectively work
with
together
our
and
struggle
build all
forward.
these.
Thank you, Sonia. We are confronting the structure of the state, of the political and economical power every day. And that's the reason why we are being persecuted, we are being killed. That's why women are murdered. And we, indigenous women, doing all this confrontation for the struggle for land, we're persecuted every day because we are confronting political and economic.
On journalists, many who have been killed, attacks on the minorities, attacks on the socially oppressed sections. Women have faced the worst forms of attack during this period. A spike in the cases of rape and killing of women. All have been happening with the ruling establishment turning a blind eye. We also find a situation wherein the Constitution of India is being undermined, and the constitutional structures, the judiciary, election commission, the different investigation agencies, all of them are being controlled by the ruling party, and the force that controls it's the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, a fascist organization. So there is need for a broadest possible unity against against the policies being pursued by this government, against the different walls that have been built by the capitalist model of development, and need to work towards a more equitable society that is required. We have had many struggles over the last many years. Started in 1936, the All India Kisan Sabha is the largest organization of the peasantry, of the farmers. We have been continuously having protests against the neoliberal policies, against the policies of discrimination, social oppression, gender-based attacks, and so on. We also have a situation in our country today that the government is curbing all forms of dissent in the most undemocratic manner. there is total loot of the natural resources of our country, just like we are seeing a situation in the Amazon forests in Brazil. You have a similar kind of open loot being allowed here in our country. While the people are kept under lockdown, the doors are being unlocked for corporate loot. The hard-won rights of the working class are being snatched. Now, from 8 hours of work a day, they are forcing workers to work 12 hours a day. And whatever labor rights are there, those are also being snatched. So it is against such a system, an exploitative system, that we have to unite. And I am sure it's not just something restricted to India alone. It is a part of the global capitalist project, and we need to have build greater solidarities to fight against these policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will check if the translation has worked for Spanish and English before we shift to our last question. But maybe before, meanwhile, we can highlight or put the spotlight on the main things that have been discussed through the first and second question. We talked about the actual physical walls that we need to shatter, and also the walls of fear. How it's very important, and it's more important than ever to unite in order to also learn from the struggles that are going around, and to find all these interconnections between them. Okay, so it turns out let's take 2 minutes of a break until we sort out the technical issues. So maybe we can put some music on, and hopefully we fix the translation and the technical issues by then. Thank you everyone for watching.
Rita, come back in 10 seconds.
We are back. Thank you for everyone who bear with us. We apologize again for the technical problems with the interpretation and the translation. We are back, and we have with us Vijoo Krishnan, the Joint Secretary of India's Farmers Movement. We have also Bertha Zuñiga, the coordinator of the Civic Council of Popular Indigenous Organizations in Honduras, and Jamal Juma, the General Coordinator of the Palestinian Stop the War campaign. Are we having Sônia Guajajara back? Is Sônia still with us? All right. So we know you have waited a lot, so maybe let's just move quickly. So let's start with our third and last questions, unfortunately. But before we go on, just a reminder for those who are joining, this is the first of a series of webinars. There will be another one on November 10th, 12th, 21st, and the 26th. So when we look at all these amazing and inspiring experiences from across the world, and we're seeing it very clearly how there are intersectional and interconnections between them, then we must ask ourselves, how can we effectively work together to build a world without walls? How can we together unite and work for a more just world? Maybe we can start with Bertha.
Sí, bueno, yo creo que esta pregunta es muy desafiante, ya que pues encontrar las maneras de articular pues nuestros procesos de resistencia siempre es una tarea muy grande y nada fácil. Sin embargo, bueno, yo creo que algo que siempre se reitera como una posibilidad es el de accionar de manera conjunta, la unidad en la acción y bueno, estar prestas y prestos a darle continuidad a lo que es esta campaña. Yo creo que pues en América Latina y principalmente en Mesoamérica hemos tenido pues esta claridad de pues luchar específicamente contra el muro que se ha intentado, bueno, que se ha venido levantando desde hace muchos años en la frontera con Estados Unidos para obstaculizar el paso de toda la comunidad del Abya Yala que va en busca de esas mejores condiciones de vida o de simplemente poder vivir. Algo que nos ha permitido también la unión con la gente en el mismo Estados Unidos que también lucha contra estas causas antirracistas y que incluso está luchando por reconocer algunos derechos migratorios para la comunidad, por ejemplo, de Honduras, que a pesar de que no tiene un conflicto armado con ningún país, tiene tasas de violencia, de muerte violentas tan altas como de un país en guerra. Así que en varios lugares del mundo es considerado pues un país en estado casi de guerra y por tanto se sigue luchando porque el asilo político de la gente de Honduras sea reconocido. Creemos que, bueno, esperamos que con este cambio de gobierno en Estados Unidos esta sea una causa que se retome para en beneficio de la comunidad
go back to this cause, fighting for the rights of immigrants from Honduras and from other countries in the world who are looking for asylum, not just in the US, but in other parts of the world. So this campaign is very important. In our country, we haven't had any kind of change. We still have a lot of difficulties to push the democratic process that we dream of as Honduran society. We're against this idea of militarization, repression in the territories, which is very present and which is expanding. So we'll be waiting to continue with this campaign. Just the fact of calling out these things through these caravans is a political action to bring attention to the conditions and making it necessary for people to immigrate. In our country, we keep fighting to change these structural causes of immigration that our country is facing. We're fighting for justice, and I think it's important to internationalize, globalize our struggles and to keep fighting for democracy, international democracy based on the sovereignty and autonomy of peoples. So there are nationalities and multiculturalism of peoples to be recognized. Suggested. We also think the struggle of women is very important in struggles for resistance, and that's very important to democratize organizations internally and to support international.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bertha. Now we can maybe move to Vijoo. We stay on the same question and on the same matter. How do you think we can effectively work together towards building a world without walls, to see a more just world, in your opinion?
In the last 6 years, we have had the experience of meticulously building issue-based unities with organizations with whom we may have many differences in opinion, but building a unity around certain points of convergence. So we had a unity of more than 300 organizations for land rights and against indiscriminate land acquisition, as well as for community rights of the people, forest rights, and so on. Similarly, more than 250 organizations of the farmers came together to form the All India Kisan Sangharsh Coordination Committee, which is leading the struggles against the neoliberal economic policies. And initially, this unity was just on two issues: demanding remunerative price for the crops and freedom from indebtedness for the farmers. But in the course of the struggle, we could expand and arrive at consensus on more issues. Also, a worker peasant unity, very rock solid unity of working class and the peasantry, that is also something which we have been able to strengthen in the last 6 years. So these experiences show us that there is need to resolutely resist all sorts of oppression, the exploitative policies of the ruling classes locally build solidarities with different organizations with a mutual respect for each of these organizations. And on the basis of that, there is also need to link with broader struggles that are happening outside. That has not been difficult for us because we have, from the early days of our organization itself, we have stood in solidarity with the Palestinian people's movement for liberation. We have stood with the struggles of the people of Brazil, whether it is the struggles of the working class for their rights in France or Greece or any other country. There has been a sense of solidarity that could be built, and also struggles in solidarity which we could have in our own country here. So I think there is need for greater interaction between organizations like ours, more such interactions where we can know more about what each of our organizations are doing. That is very much important. And on the basis of this mutual respect that emerges, since all of us are working towards defeating the walls of injustice, I think it won't be very difficult for us to unite on that. So I do think that the kind of solidarity that we have been able to build on the issue of Palestine, I agree it needs to be further strengthened, but we believe that your struggles are as much ours as our struggles are yours. So that is that. With that approach, we need to go ahead, and that would help us to build a beautiful resistance across the globe against the visible and invisible walls, whether of bricks and stones or those walls in your minds also. I think that is the direction in which we need to go. We look forward to greater cooperation and more solidarity action between all your organizations in coming days.
Great, thank you, Vijoo, and I salute all these amazing efforts from India to Brazil, from Honduras to Palestine. Okay, then we move lastly to you, Jamal. If you can also give us your take on the last question and how you also think we can work effectively, if you have anything to add on our inspiring speakers on this issue.
Thank you, Rita. I want just like to connect the two things. Part of the first question with this question. The national resistance, the Palestinian national resistance, particularly against the wall, is very connected. It is the popular resistance on the ground that the people is handling, demonstrating, standing up against the wall, against the destruction of their land, destruction of their homes, stealing their land, isolating it from them, and with the international solidarity. International solidarity has been translated, which came out of by the BDS movement. Right away when they start building the wall, in 2002, when we launched our movement, start mobilizing the communities around the bank against those villages pass the wall through their lands. We start forming the popular committees there. Immediately, when we see what system that Israel is doing there, is clearly an apartheid system. The wall is a wall of apartheid. So the first thing comes to our mind is the experience of South Africa. So we, inspired by South Africa, we launched this movement in 2005. Movement is the collective movement. It's like the wide representing the Palestinian people everywhere. West Bank, in Gaza, in Palestine 48, in the diaspora. So it's bring Palestinian people together, unite the Palestinian people behind the rights that we were calling in BDS. So this is what the strength of the BDS. Then BDS as a human rights movement that based its struggle on the basic Palestinian human rights that's supported by international law, by United Nations resolution, started widely the solidarity with the Palestinians international wide. We were connected with significant movements around the world, with from different kinds of movements, the human rights organizations, coalitions, and platforms like World Social Forum, which we started joining since 2004. We were in the IC committee until lately, until the last 2 years, when it's almost like finished now. So for us, it's like popular resistance must go along with the international solidarity. We defy ourselves, people, in our target for our land that the occupied Israeli occupation and the military is stolen. The action of our people. We identify our struggle with the indigenous people around the world. That's why when we, in 2017, when Trump came to the power and started the war between Mexico and the United States, first, what we think of is like the indigenous people on both sides. There, where we launched together our movement against the wars, which is World Without Walls, that's now became widely around the world and became connected to the migrants issues and to other issues around the world. When we talk about international solidarity for us as a Palestinians, as we identified ourselves with the movement against racism, with the indigenous movements struggle, so mainly focus in our networking with the global South, and this is what I think as a Palestinian movement we were proud to advance this. We understand that. So in order to advance and to make solidarity more effective, I think what to do about our, and this is also we tried and we did in the two years ago within World Without Walls, when we asked the different movements around the world who are suffering from the war to write about their cases. This is part of the raising awareness between people around the world about the common issues that they are struggling for. The other thing we have to believe strongly is our enemy is the same. Our enemy as a Palestinians is the imperialism. Our enemy, the international powers, global companies, all those who's interested and benefited from their colonization and from the oppression that they put on us. It's the same in Latin America. In 70s and 80s, Israel used to be the hands of the United States in Latin America, who supporting and paramilitary, who supporting the dictatorships, the drugs trafficking. So they do the job. So they are not just like a cornerstone for the imperialism in the Midst, but as well as around the world. So Israel is part of the system. And when we talk about walls as an industry that Israel behind exported around the world, which is benefited from all this fascist regime, it means like when we stand together against the system, against Israel, we also stand up together against the imperialism and those powers that oppressed our people. So coordination between us has to be strengthened. We have to understand about our struggles perfectly, and we have to build support to each other based on our common struggle, which is I find it everywhere. When we think about the stealing of the land and what the farmers is suffering in India, it's the same as in Palestine. The farmers is in the forefront of the struggle against the oppression and against the apartheid system and against the occupation. In Latin America, Honduras, in Brazil, it's all the same. Like this forms of oppression is exported to that country. They are training this regimes. They are in technology also to control over the people. They're exporting the drones. They're exporting all their means of oppression to the people. It's important for us, as it is in India, the same. I will say it again. Like in Latin America, also the indigenous problem is a problem of the land, of stealing their land. Mainly, maybe it's different than India, but it's from the global companies that's trying to destroy their community to take over their lands. So mainly going forward in this, and why I think the problem is the pandemic, which is this is another story in Palestine, because Israel has been used the pandemic and the lookout to intensify their stealing of the land. More than 16 settlements that has in this year. Tens of thousands of hectares of Palestinian land has been confiscated. New settlements has been using the pandemic. So what we need to go forward with this, I think, is to together we have to sit back again and to put all the main issues in our struggle together and join our struggles. Without joining our struggles, win. And we have to understand also, when the farmers in India win their struggle, or when the Palestinians win their struggle, it's not just for the Palestinians, it's for the humanity, for all of our struggles around the world. I will stop here.
Thank you.
Rita.
Thank you, Jamal. I will start from that point, from the same point. When we say the enemy is one and we say the struggle is one, we're not exaggerating, and it's not a metaphor. The struggle against US military aid from Yemen to Honduras is the same struggle against Israeli aid from India to Brazil. It is indeed one struggle. It was such an honor, and I was very delighted to listen to all of you and your contributions despite the technical issues. And I would like to re-highlight one of the points that Sônia Guajajara has raised, and we can't, she's unable to be here because of the technical issues, when she said that even the margins of freedom that we are having today, these are not gifts. We struggle to have these margins. We struggle to have these rights. And just as we struggle to be as we are today, not just us and our ancestors, we shall also keep up the struggle to get our freedom and our equality. So I was very honored to be facilitating these very important discussions today. This was truly a moment in which we had a space to lift our heads, see beyond the walls, perceive the struggles of others and the connections between our struggles in order to gain strength and confidence together. The bigger the walls, the more cracks. And if the walls surround us, we should hold on to the certitude of hope that one by one, they will be taken down. And while we the people continue standing, they will fall. Thank you so much for also the unknown soldiers who've been helping us and working day and night, from translating to technician. And thank you everyone who bared with us and waited. Thank you Vijoo Krishnan, the Joint Secretary of India's Farmers Movement. Thank you, Bertha Zuñiga, Coordinator of the Civic Council of Popular Indigenous Organizations in Honduras, COPINH. We also know that you have also struggled in order to make these webinars happen. You, Vijoo, are quarantined, as I heard, and Bertha, you also, the hearing of the court of the assassination of your late leader slash mother has just started. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And please, save the date that this is only the first webinar of a series hosted by Stop the Wall. The second will be on the 12th until the 16th. So you can have more details on them on the website of Stop the Wall. Thank you very much. And I wish everyone a great day, good night. And thank you for joining us today. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much. Greetings and solidarity.
Thank you, Rita.
Join us to ask the EU to stop using Israel's killer drones against migrants. These drones have been used in the killing of so many of us here in Gaza. They have been tested in our bodies.
It is a proof that Europe now agree what Israel has done all this time of killing Palestinian. It is mean there is a war. It mean now it is a war between the migrants and the EU. Europe don't care about the people who died in the sea or be killed. I can say the people who be killed in the sea.
We in Gaza not only want to end the Israeli military occupation and apartheid regime, but we also care about refugees. Do you care too? Take action now and contribute to end combating this crime.
Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze 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 zungangishila ilondoloze ilondoloze Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze wami aukulana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami aikulana buso wami aukulana ilondoloze zuhambe nami ilondoloze 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 zungangishilana ilondoloze 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 zungangishilana dawo yami aikolana buso wami aukolana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami aikolana buso wami aukolana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikayalami